In the Choco Rock Lab, our goal was to show different ways that matter can change. Matter cannot be created or destroyed, only cycled through different forms. The Choco Rockos were a model for the real rocks on Earth's crust. Each of the processes and products in the lab represent real rock matter or processes. Let's go through the processes and matter in the lab and the real-life rock cycle processes that they represent. Some students chopped or shaved their Choco Rockos into crumbly little pieces. In the rock cycle, little bits of rock such as sand, gravel, or silt are called sediment. Sediment is broken down bits of rock. Some students took those crumbly pieces and compacted them together with something heavy, such as books. This made the crumbly bits stick together in one solid piece. In the rock cycle, solid rock made from sediment is called sedimentary rock. Sedimentary rock is made from the bits of rock called sediments. Other students took the Choco Rockos and heated them up. When they heated the Choco Rockos but did not melt them, the result might have been burnt Choco Rockos or soft Choco Rockos that they could mold into a new shape. Either way, the result was something different from before. The changing process is called metamorphosis, like you might know from when caterpillars metamorphose into butterflies. In the rock cycle, a rock that came from this kind of change is called metamorphic rock. Some students heated their Choco Rockos even more, to the point that they melted. Some Choco Rockos were melted, mixed, and then cooled again into a solid. In the rock cycle, a rock that is made from matter being melted and then cooled again is igneous rock. Igneous rock is a solid that came from melted and cooled rock material. However, while the rock is still in a liquid state, the word for it in the rock cycle is called molten rock. Molten rock above the ground is called lava. Molten rock below the ground is called magma. Both lava and magma are molten rock. Now that we have named the products of the rock cycle, let's talk about the processes. Remember the rock that comes from being heated and squished? We called it metamorphic rock. The processes that create metamorphic rock are heat, but not enough to melt the rock, and pressure, extreme pressure. The processes we use to break down the Choco Rockos is like the rock cycle process called weathering. Weathering is breaking down rock. Little pieces of weathered rock become sediments, and they hardly ever stay in one place. Erosion is the rock cycle word that includes weathering, but also adds moving pieces of rock. Erosion is the process of breaking down and moving rock. But if rock is moved, it has to find a place to settle. You might know that dropping off your money into a bank is called making a deposit. Scientists use the same word for dropping off sediment. Usually, sediment is deposited in a low area like a valley, lake, or ocean. The process of making a deposit is called deposition. Deposition is when sediments are dropped off and settle into a place. When enough pieces are deposited, just like with the Choco Rockos, the pieces can now be squished or glued together to make sedimentary rock. You may have heard of a trash compactor before. Compactors squish things into solid pieces, just like sediments being squished in the rock cycle. Scientists use the same word for squishing sediments into sedimentary rock. Compaction is the word for squishing pieces together. Sometimes pieces aren't just squished, they're glued or cemented together. Cement comes from mixing the right bits of rock and water together. It makes a liquid mud that dries hard into a solid. In fact, if you've ever seen cut concrete, like on a sidewalk, you might notice that inside the cement is chunks of rock. Scientists use the word cement to describe sediments sticking or gluing together into sedimentary rock. This process is called cementation. Cementation. Next, scientists have a word for the process of melting, just like we did with the Choco Rockos. This process is called, are you ready for it? Melting. This one should be easy to remember. Heating rock so much that it turns into a liquid is called melting. Be careful though, because if you just use the word heat by itself, that usually means making the rock hot enough to change, but not enough to melt. If the matter turns into molten rock, we use the word melting. Molten rock can then turn back into a solid through the process of freezing or cooling. Scientists use the word cooling to talk about molten rock losing heat and becoming a solid. However, another process sometimes happens at the same time. Granite is an example of an igneous rock, meaning it was made by cooling molten rock. But if you look carefully, you see little patches of different colors in the rock. These are called crystals. When molten rock cools slowly enough, the molecules in the rock have time to gather together in these patches and form crystals. The slower the rock cools, the more time the crystals have to form, and the larger the crystals tend to be. The rock cycle process for this is called crystallization. Crystallization. Each of the processes and forms of matter we explored in the Choco Rock Lab are a model of the processes in the rock cycle.